shall now pass over to Paddy O'Connell, our host for this evening. Do you have that?
How do you define the wealthy? Vince Cable.
Obviously we have to distinguish between income distribution. There's a very substantial income inequality in the UK. Mainly the top 1%, once you get below that, the relationship between the top 10% and the bottom 10% has actually narrowed in the last few years of this government, but there is a very high income group.
Are you wealthy?
I would say I'm healthy in terms of income, and I have a family semi-detached house in Whitton Road in Twickenham. I guess that makes me amongst the wealthiest 10% of the population.
Well, we have a very simple way of describing that, and that's based on income. Wealthy, you've earned your money in your lifetime. You should be able to have that money. You've paid your taxes, and you should be able to leave it to your children as well. So we wish to get rid of inheritance tax.
Are you wealthy, Barry Edwards?
I wouldn't say I was wealthy, no.
And now we're going to Nick Grant from Labour. Nick, do hold it close. How do you define wealthy?
Before you ask, Paddy, I regard myself as wealthy, just to get that out of the way. The question facing the country is really, what is the fairest, what is the right, socially just distribution of burden when times are hard and when everyone needs to put their shoulder to the wheel and make a difference in the country? That's actually the question we should be asking. We're currently in a period of trickle-down economics still now, where the wealthiest do get tax cuts. And the idea is that they then spend more money and stimulate the economy, and it doesn't work.
Okay. Hello, I'm Tanya Williams from the Green Party. So, question of wealth. Yes, I believe I am wealthy. I have a roof over my head, I have plenty of food to eat. I can pay my bills at the end of the month. That makes me wealthy.
What is a wealthy income? What's an income that makes someone wealthy? £50,000? 60?
I would say being in the top tax bracket in this country, if you're earning enough to pay the top rate of tax, you're wealthy. That's a good enough definition for me.
So then we'll go to Dr. Tanya Mathias, who's the candidate from the Conservative Party. How do you define wealthy?
Yes, and before, yes, I would count myself as wealthy. What I would say is wealthy is over 50,000, but it's also a figure that isn't an absolute one. I think it would change. It is variable. So I would not consider people in mid-career, like nurses and professionals who have not reached the peak of their career, I would not consider them wealthy. I wouldn't want them to be dragged into the higher tax bracket, and that's why I would advocate raising that high rate threshold.
Raise the higher rate of tax. Thank you. I'm sorry to be a bit cheeky, but it's a great question and we're glad to have it. So Sheikh Zaman's question is, he's against your mansion tax, Vince Cable. Would the threshold go up and down with house prices? Would you kindly use the microphone?
Well, the proposal we have is that it should be indexed. Yeah.
Sorry, I made a mistake. Yes. Barry, you next. Would you like to go next? Yes, it should be indexed.
Right. We're completely against the mansion tax. We think it's unfair, and the only reason that the other parties are actually even considering it is because they want to carry on with this strange experiment in Europe that is costing us £170 billion a year.
Well, the first thing to say, the Labour Party proposal mansion tax is absolutely nothing to do with Europe, Barry. It's all to do with the essential investment we need to put into the NHS. That's why Labour are doing it, no other reason. We're creating a £2.5 billion fund it's called the Time to Care Fund, and that will essential investment into the NHS. It is a fair tax, and it's fair because the people that live in very much lower value homes are paying proportionally much more for that privilege than the people in the 2 million plus homes. So it's a measure of, again, it's fair. Well, I think, sir, if you're lucky enough to earn the money and have the achievements to get into a £2 million house, I would ask you sincerely, man to man, whether in fact it's not the right thing for you to do to be paying a little bit more tax for that.
The mansion tax will be £3 million. Our manifesto is coming out next week, and the fully costed details is in.
I am against mansion tax. I'm against tax on family homes. But the question also on taxing people when their homes increase in value, I would say that the changes in the stamp duty have helped that. If you think about if somebody was fortunate to have a £2 million house and they sell it at that profit now, they are going to be looking at a high percentage of stamp duty tax. So I believe in taxing your income that you earn. I believe in taxing a profit, but tax the profit when it's crystallised. Don't just penalise people because you think where they're living it's increasing in value. Do it when they sell.
The problem, we're only having this debate because the council tax system has become massively distorted. I mean, it was introduced in 1992 in a panic by the then government that was trying to find an alternative to the polls tax. And all the council tax banding is based on 1992 house price valuations, by which, since which the whole market has gone completely berserk. So, we already have a tax on houses, which is council tax. It's massively distorted. Politicians of all parties don't want to face the pain of revaluation. What needs to happen is to look at the extreme ends of it, because if you're in Band A, you pay a high proportion of your income in council tax. If you're in Band H, you pay a much smaller proportion. And if you have a £1 million house, you have substantial income, you pay a tiny fraction. So something needs to be done at the very top end of the range, creating more bands, and you call that a mansion tax or not, is a matter of language. But something desperately needs to be done to reform the system, make it fair.
Okay, thank you. Would the candidates predict the outcome of the Rugby World Cup on the pitch and at the railway station and on the road outside? We'll start with you, if we can, Nick Grant, because we've started down here. What chaos can residents of Twickenham expect, and are you looking forward to the rugby?
So, I am looking forward to the rugby. I think it will be a very important cultural event, and it's good to have fun and celebration in one's life. Having said that, there is no doubt that the evidence is mixed as to the net economic benefit of such big sporting events. There's a lot of money comes in, it tends to go to pubs and fast food, and there's a lot of money that has to be spent on looking after those people in terms of street cleaning, etc. And I think probably my view is it nets out as this. If there is a substantial, lasting legacy, which we certainly achieved with the Olympics and Paralympics, if there is that which carries on into the future for the community that it affects, then I'm totally in favour, and that clinches the argument for me. And Paddy, my last thing I'll say on that is that I'm not currently totally convinced that that legacy is in place for the people of Twickenham.
Will you just rate the railway station out of 10? What marks would you give Twickenham railway station out of 10? Or 0 if you want?
I think I'd probably give it 5. I mean, it's sort of getting there a bit, but it seems to be confused about where it wants to end up.
Thank you, and I'll ask everyone to comment on that. Tanya Williams from the Green Party, what will the impact of the World Cup be on the station and the traffic, and are you looking forward to the sport?
Right, yes, I'm a great rugby fan. My teenage son plays for Richmond Rugby Club and my husband coaches there. I think it's great that we're hosting it this year. And
Tanya Williams of the Greens. Dr. Tanya Mathias, are you looking forward to the sport and are you looking forward to the crowds and what's the impact?
Thank you. Yes. This is just going to be an incredible year. What is exciting is getting the people that were involved with the Olympics trying to tell us how to minimise disruption for residents and maximise the enjoyment for visitors. So I think this is going to be a showcase for Twickenham. I think for all stations in Twickenham, all of them should be so much better. It's a 5 out of 10 for all of them.
Well, the overall assessment is that rugby is generally beneficial, I think, to Twickenham, particularly the business community. There are some gain, some lose. But there is a great deal of disruption for residents immediately around it. I'm in the middle of all that, so I see this on a regular basis. In terms of the specifics, the Twickenham station is poor, fabric's poor. It's now been improved. It will go from 4 out of 10 to 6 or 7. The real problem, of course, is with the crowding rather than with the station itself. The big issue is going to be the traffic diversions, which is a big untested experiment. The area around the stadium will be completely traffic-free and traffic will be diverted, which is going to cause very serious problems in areas like Hampton that haven't seen this problem before, because a lot of the M3 traffic will be diverted down through Hampton Court. I suspect coming from London, if they're not successful in discouraging people from coming, you'll have a lot of traffic going through St Margaret's and Twickenham with all kind of potential consequences. It's an experiment, we don't know, but I'm apprehensive about it. The final point is this, that I think the thing we need to be more worried about than the side effects of the World Cup are the negotiations which may happen between Mr Abramovich's people and the rugby union. We haven't yet got an absolute guarantee from the RFU that they won't have fortnightly Premier League matches here, which will be seriously disruptive.
Are you against the idea of any football being played at Twickenham?
Yes, and the future.
Thank you. Barry, would you answer the question about the disruption of the station?
Yeah, well, I completely support the RFU. They're a great asset to the local area and a very large employer.
What the councillor doing? As MP, would you support any football being played at Twickenham, as Vince has been talking about? Would you like to see football, the one they don't pick up, round one?
Well, I'd like to say something slightly different because...
Well, can you just answer my question first?
Well, as the MP, I would like to take more involvement in the decision-making process with the local people. Right. So I would have referendums for local people to make that decision.
Okay, thank you very much.
Be much more involved with local politics and balance this Lib Dem and Conservative flip-flap that always happens.
So whether it's, we can guarantee we won't support austerity, we're firmly against austerity. We believe that the NHS needs to be safeguarded. We will strip out privatisation from the NHS, remove the market system altogether. We don't believe profit belongs in the health system, nor in transport, nor in education, which we think should be a public service and not for profit.
I know there are quite a few of us, if we all get in this part of London, no third runway, no what's called mansion tax, no family homes tax. So those will be red lines.
Vince Cable, you've got a microphone that's working. What are your red lines?
Well, the party will have a manifesto and it will endeavour to explain our approach to the economy. We've been in government 5 years, as you know, I'm still Secretary of State. I think we've got a good record and we will want to sustain that in terms of financial responsibility and supporting productivity and growth, but we will be emphasising much more the conservative issues around fairness in taxation and a greater degree of environmental priorities. And our experience last time was that 80% of our manifesto was accepted into the coalition agreement.
Thank you. So Barry Edwards, UKIP red lines and your own? More of a red
We
line.
will not go into any party that is going to continuously bankrupt this country, and that involves all of the parties that are following the European model, the EU model, because we are just wasting money everywhere.
I would comment, however, that as far as Liberal Democrats are concerned, they don't have any red lines. They position themselves as they'll get into bed with whichever other party appears, a sort of Goldilocks approach, and they'll just sort of fit in the middle with whatever middle ground is there. It doesn't mean anything. So I'm going to say to you that all of my programme is a red line for me as a conviction politician, and you can judge the others on what they're prepared to give away.
Would you like to come back, Vince Cable, on the allegation that you're promiscuous Goldilocks?
It's not at all. We've spent most of our lives in opposition, and that's how I spent the vast amount of my time in the Parliament. So far from jumping into bed with other parties, we've been strikingly independent.
Just working backwards from more recent stuff. I've also done an awful lot on the illegal mooring, and that I think because our river borderline is very precious.
I'm responsible, for example, for the National Physical Laboratory, which has very considerably expanded its scientific reputation and its employment. I've started the startup loan scheme and these various platforms which are now used for internet lending. And I'll just take one small example that I discussed on the way in here with the principal of this college. That, a few months ago, I managed to get some money from the Treasury to run in adult education colleges courses that are specifically designed to help people with mental illness, which is part of my party's overall emphasis on mental illness within the health service. And I was pleased to discover this college actually won one of the...
Candid, what have you done, Barry, for Twickenham?
Well, I was very proud to be part of the group that stopped the Gloriana damaging Mornings Park Gardens, which was one of the things that Tanya was actually trying to make happen. The next thing I've done, I've been working to protect the environment to do with Mogden sewage works for the last 20 years, and very recently we got together a group of 1,300 residents who got an undisclosed sum as compensation from Thames Water, which was in the millions.
I have to say that really my focus for the last 6 years really has not been in Twickenham. In any time that I've had outside of my family, which I value very highly, and my career as a lawyer, which I obviously have to put a lot of time into, all of my other time has been put into Felton Community College in Harrington.
So for Twickenham, I have stood up for Ross Seekers, which are a very difficult and unpopular group. Nobody wants to admit they exist. They are there. They're out there every night, and I've worked on night shelters saving their life. Briefly, I'm working human rights law. My actual day job is working with human trafficking victims. I work for the Helen Bamber Foundation in Camden. However, a cannabis farm in Twickenham was busted last year, and it was being staffed by Vietnamese boys who had been trafficked. This is a common problem which I face all the time.
Thank you.
So, both Twickenham and Camden, I'm helping people.
Thank you. Studying and paying tuition fees and elite worries about people who aren't very wealthy. So,
in terms of the tuition fee debate, I mean, you'll have heard me say this many times before. I mean, all the political parties have dealt with this very badly, including mine. We made a famous pledge, which we had to go back on when we confronted the financial realities of government. And we have come up with a system that works. And it works in the sense that we now have more people going to university than ever before, more people from disadvantaged background. The payment system is a progressive one, that you don't pay anything up to 21,000. The main beneficiaries of a cut in tuition fees now, which I think is Labour proposing, would be people 80,000, 90,000 income when they graduate, which is ludicrous. Universities are properly funded, and as a result of these changes, I was able to set aside money to put into apprenticeships.
I can't see any justification. I went to university, I have my university fees paid. I can't see any justification of forcing our young people to have any other position than we had ourselves when we were that age.
I would not have gone to university with a £44,000 debt hanging over my head. I don't believe it.
do you think fewer people will go to universities now because of the tuition structure, and would you change it?
Well, I think the system is building up a huge amount of bad debt for the future. I think it's a really bad system. Labour are working with it because
you're not going to change it, but you're going to tinker with it.
Well, if I was Prime Minister, I'd change it.
That's next. But when you get elected, you've got to get elected. So
is that how it works, Paddy?
Right.
I
may have missed that during the campaign.
Scrap tuition fees, and we'd pay for it by getting rid of Trident, sorting out tax dodging, and various other progressive measures.
Thank you. So on the tuition fees, if I was elected, I would be trying to eliminate that interest rate when a student is studying. I want it to be 0% while they're studying at university. I don't agree with the 3% plus RPI once they have left university either. I want that loan to be one of the best loans that you ever get in your life.